In a city filled with towering skyscrapers and endless opportunities, some hearts remain invisible, unseen, and unheard. My name is Emma, and this is my story. I was born into poverty in a small, cramped apartment that barely had enough space for my family to live comfortably. Every day was a struggle, but even in the most difficult moments, I held on to a dream of a life bigger than the narrow streets and broken sidewalks I called home. My mornings began before the sun rose. I would wake, quietly helping my mother in the kitchen to prepare breakfast for my siblings. The smell of stale bread and boiled eggs mixed with the faint scent of damp walls in our tiny home. My father worked long hours at a factory, returning home exhausted, his hands rough and his eyes heavy with fatigue. There was rarely money enough for anything beyond the essentials, yet my parents always found a way to make us feel loved, to show us that, even in scarcity, there was warmth in family. I learned early that love could exist in the humblest of circumstances. School was both an escape and a challenge. I would walk miles in worn shoes, my uniform often patched at the knees and elbows. I remember the cold mornings when frost would bite my fingers and I would clutch my notebook to keep warm, dreaming of a life where I didn't have to shiver through the streets just to learn. Despite the hardships, I was determined. Every lesson I learned, every word I wrote, felt like a small step toward a future where I could change my life and perhaps even help those around me. I was determined that my circumstances would not define me. I had friends at school, though many of them were from more privileged backgrounds. Sometimes I would feel invisible, standing in the shadows as they laughed about things I could not afford. Yet, even in those moments, I refused to let bitterness take hold. Instead, I felt a quiet resolve growing within me. I would not allow poverty to cloud my spirit. Every night, after finishing my homework, I would write in my small notebook, crafting stories of a world that was kinder, fairer, and full of hope. That notebook became my sanctuary, the place where my dreams had no boundaries. Then, there was Alexander. I had never met him before the day he appeared in my life, and yet from the very first moment, I could sense the loneliness he carried. He lived high above the city, in a world of unimaginable wealth. His life was one most people would envy, filled with luxury and privilege. But I could see through the layers of opulence. Behind the tall windows and elegant suits, there was a heart that had been untouched by true connection. I could sense it even from a distance, though I did not yet know him personally. Our first encounter was a twist of fate. I was delivering newspapers in the busy streets, my bag heavy with the morning edition, when I noticed a wallet lying on the sidewalk. I picked it up, scanning the crowd for the owner. A man in a tailored suit, tall and composed, hurried past, unaware that he had dropped it. I called out, "Excuse me, sir, you dropped this." He stopped, turned, and looked at me with surprise. His eyes were sharp, yet weary, and when he smiled, it was soft, almost shy. That smile lingered in my mind long after he walked away. From that moment on, our worlds began to collide in subtle, unexpected ways. I began to notice him around the city, sometimes walking alone, sometimes in moments of solitude that made him appear vulnerable despite his wealth. And slowly we started meeting, at first by chance, then intentionally. Coffee in quiet cafes, brief exchanges at the park, and eventually longer conversations that stretched into the evenings. He shared stories not of business or power, but of loneliness, of childhood memories, of moments of loss that no money could ever replace. I, in turn, shared my life with him, cautiously revealing the layers of struggle, hope, and dreams that defined me. In his presence, I felt seen, not as a poor girl in patched clothes, but as someone who mattered, someone whose heart carried dreams. He listened with a patience I had never experienced before, and slowly, trust began to build between us. I realized then that wealth is not measured by money, but by the ability to see another person, to understand them, to connect with them on a level that transcends material possessions. Alexander, despite all his fortune, had been lonely for years, and I, despite my hardships, had found a kindred spirit. Life, however, was never simple. The more time we spent together, the more people began to notice. Rumors started to spread. My family worried, unsure if someone like him could truly care about someone like me. And Alexander faced his own pressures, from business associates, society, and a world that scrutinizes relationships that cross lines of wealth and class. Fear crept in, subtle and insidious. I questioned whether our hearts could survive the judgment and assumptions of everyone around us. But I also knew that if we let fear dictate our choices, we would never truly live. And so I made a decision, quiet but firm. I would follow my heart. Alexander inspired me in ways I had never imagined possible. He saw not just my poverty, but my potential. He encouraged me to dream bigger, to believe in myself, and to pursue opportunities I thought were unreachable. And through his encouragement, I discovered strength I had never known I possessed. I realized that survival was not enough. I wanted to thrive. I wanted to create a life filled with purpose, meaning, and the ability to help others who faced struggles similar to my own. My life began to expand not through money, but through courage, effort, and the relationships I nurtured. Alexander and I continued to grow together, navigating a world that often judged our connection. We learned to communicate openly, to trust without reservation, and to protect the bond we had forged. I witnessed his growth too. He began to smile more freely, to embrace the simple joys of life, and to recognize that his wealth was not the measure of his value. Through our friendship and shared experiences, we both discovered that love is the most transformative force in life. Looking back, I realized that our story is not just about two people from different worlds coming together. It is about resilience, hope, and the courage to pursue what truly matters. It is about understanding that life's greatest treasures are intangible, found not in money or status, but in connection, empathy, and the strength to dream. I learned that even in the face of adversity, one can rise, one can inspire, and one can love deeply. As the months passed, my life continued to change in ways I had never imagined. Every day brought new challenges, but also new lessons. I began to see that hardship did not define a person. It was the way we responded to it that mattered. I worked harder in school, studied late into the night, and took every opportunity to learn, grow, and improve myself. I discovered that perseverance is a quiet kind of strength, one that grows gradually, without fanfare, but with lasting power. Alexander remained a constant presence in my life. Our bond had grown from curiosity to trust, and from trust to something much deeper. He had become not only a friend and confidant, but also a mirror in which I could see my own growth. I saw in him someone who had built immense wealth and influence, yet had always longed for connection, for understanding, for a heart that would see him as he truly was. And I realized that through our relationship, we were teaching each other to embrace life fully, to acknowledge both its pain and its beauty. One evening, as we sat together in a quiet park, he spoke to me in a way that still echoes in my mind. "Emma," he said, "you've shown me something I thought I had lost long ago. The joy of seeing life as full of possibilities, the courage to open my heart, and the reminder that real wealth comes from connection, not possessions. I felt a warmth in my chest, a mixture of gratitude and humility, because I understood that he was speaking not of me as a poor girl, but of me as a human being whose spirit could inspire change, not just in him, but in the world around me. But life was never simple. The pressures of the world, the gossip, the judgment, the whispers of disbelief continued to hover over us. Sometimes it felt like a storm, heavy and relentless, threatening to undo the fragile happiness we had built. I questioned whether we could endure it, whether our hearts were strong enough to withstand the scrutiny and doubt. Yet, in these moments, I realized that love and courage are not passive. They require action, commitment, and the willingness to face adversity together. Our journey was not just about survival or love, but about transformation. I began to see opportunities that I had never noticed before. I pursued my education with vigor, seeking knowledge and skills that would allow me to make a real difference in the world. I started helping others in my community, tutoring children, mentoring friends, and giving back in small but meaningful ways. Every act of kindness, every lesson shared, reinforced the understanding that life's value is measured not by wealth, but by the impact we have on others. Alexander and I faced moments of doubt, moments when it seemed easier to step back and retreat into the comfort of isolation. But each time our hearts reminded us that the only way to truly live was to embrace the challenges, to fight for the love and connection we had found. Through these trials, we learned patience, empathy, and the importance of communication. We became a team, not just in the context of our relationship, but in navigating the complexities of life together. Years passed, and I began to see the fruits of our journey. I graduated from school with honors, securing opportunities that had once seemed impossible. My family's circumstances improved, not through handouts, but through my hard work and determination. Alexander continued to grow in his own way, learning that wealth alone could never fulfill the human heart. Together, we discovered that real success is measured by resilience, kindness, and the courage to remain true to one's values. In the quiet moments when the city slept and the world seemed still, I would reflect on how far we had come. From the narrow streets of my childhood to the possibilities that now stretched before me, I understood that life is a series of choices, and that every choice we make shapes the trajectory of our journey. Choosing hope, choosing love, choosing courage. These were the decisions that had carried me through adversity and led me to a life filled with meaning and purpose. Looking back, I realized that our story is not just about a poor girl and a wealthy man. It is about two hearts learning from each other, about the transformative power of connection, and about the ability to rise above circumstance through perseverance, love, and courage. It is about understanding that true wealth is not measured in money, but in the depth of our relationships, the impact we have on the world, and the strength to follow our dreams against all odds. Alexander and I continue to walk through life side by side, each day learning more about ourselves and the world around us. We face challenges, of course, because life is never without them, but we face them together, strengthened by the understanding that love, trust, and shared purpose can overcome almost anything. I have learned that when two people truly see each other, when they support and inspire one another, they can achieve things that might have seemed impossible alone. As I reflect on my journey, I am grateful for the struggles that shaped me, the people who guided me, and the love that transformed my life. I know now that dreams are not just fantasies, they are seeds that grow when nurtured with courage and perseverance. I have learned that hope is not passive, but an active choice we make every day. And most importantly, I have discovered that love, in its truest form, is the force that can heal, inspire, and elevate us beyond the limitations of circumstance. And so this is my story, a story of struggle, hope, and the courage to follow one's heart. It is a story of learning to see the world with compassion, of finding strength within oneself, and of understanding that life's greatest treasures are not material, but the connections, experiences, and love we cultivate along the way. Through it all, I have learned that no matter where we come from, no matter the challenges we face, we are capable of creating lives filled with meaning, purpose, and joy. And I have learned that love, patience, and perseverance are the keys to unlocking the future we dream of. My journey continues, but I carry with me the lessons, the hope, and the love that have guided me this far. I am Emma, and this is my story. A story of struggle, hope, and the courage to follow one's heart.